from Modern Drummer, PDFs that I emailed out over the weekend. So I have them right here. If you guys have them on your tablets or printed out, we can use that as a resource as well.
Cool. Thank you, Steve, and thank you all. And it is an honor to be joining this drum department again with Steve and Sherry and Mike and Jason. I mean, this is, to me, and like Steve said, I started as director of School of Music back in the 90s. So I've seen lots of institutions, universities, programs toured extensively. This is, to me, by far, the absolute best drum set faculty of any institution up and down the line. So I'm proud to be working with people like Steve that I've known for 20 years. Steve and I have known each other, and Mike Dawson probably 15 years, and Sherry I've been a fan with forever, and Jason we've been hanging out for the last 10 years. So it's and seeing some familiar faces on the call here with students like Satch and others. So it'd be very cool to get back and kind of hang with y'all. So let me jump in. I have a PowerPoint that I'm going to show, and it's a greatly reduced PowerPoint from what I've presented at PASIC, and I was down in Texas last year and other drum sessions and universities presenting how to learn and how we develop. So I'm gonna start that now. Hold all your questions till the end. I have some examples I can play for you later, and I'm good to hang with you all as long as you like. And obviously, at any time in the future, you can email me with questions or arguments or research or whatever. All right, let me get this going. And I want to make sure that you can all see the screen. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, so this is what I title it: improving learning, memory, practice, skill, and music. Let me make sure that I'm doing this right. And these are my areas of research. When I say research, it's actually research as someone who formally does research. I do these methods, qualitative and pragmatic. They're the areas of research that I've engaged in over the last 12 to 15 years. Some of them are pretty nerdy, I fully admit. And this is these are the areas of my research. Let's see if this comes up. Sometimes we think of drums as an island. We learn to play drums and there's really no other analogs or no similarities in other life, but it's actually, there's a lot of science in it. We train similarly to how athletes train. There's medicine involved here. So all of these areas, you can't just study and research how to learn to play drums by studying just the drums. So these are the areas that overlap. And neuroscience and neurophysiology are the two main areas, and I'm going to read some of this to you, understanding and utilizing some of the principles of how our brains, nervous systems, and bodies work, and how we learn and remember. We can develop methods to maintain and increase our skill levels and our musicianship. Expert performance is the product of learning, accumulated knowledge, studying, thinking, practicing, creating. It's not genetic predisposition. We're not born with a talent to play drums. It's within the reach of all who have the motivation, time, and discipline to pursue it. It is built, not born. Learning how we learn. Knowing how to learn is an acquired skill. Certain aspects of how we believe or are told that we learn and develop may be practices handed down for decades, some of which are based on hearsay, custom, intuition, trial and error, or tradition, and not on facts. Practice. What is practice? Practice is a deliberate, purposeful, goal-oriented, methodical, systematic, regular, and highly repetitive activity designed to maintain and improve skill and ability. It is not just playing the instrument. The how is just as important as the what. And these are some neuroscience terms that I've gone on to define a little bit for us in terms of drums. Contextualization, practicing in musical context versus straight mechanical repetition. So whatever I practice and whatever I ask my students to practice, I ask them to play with music, whether it's loops or grooves or play-alongs. Elaboration is creating variations and building self-expression, which makes information usable, deepens learning, and develops your own voice and style. Your goal, my goal, is to have our own unique voice. When you think of Sherry, when you think of Mike and Steve and Jason, and Steve Gadd and Dave Weckl and Elvin Jones, everybody has their own unique voice. No one sounds like anyone else. So that's the goal. And elaboration is one of the ways to get there. Proceduralization. Our brains chunk individual strokes, and you'll see an example of this later on, into a single procedure that can then be executed with little conscious effort. Interleaving is mixing up what you practice. Very important. Spacing. Taking breaks allows some forgetting, which actually strengthens the learning and development. It's more effective to practice in 3 one-hour sessions in a day than 1 3-hour session. When I was in college, I was practicing 8-10 hours a day. Locked myself in the practice room. And I eventually built up some skills and learned some things, but could have done it better, a lot quicker, more effective if I had known some of these things. Effective practice is mostly in the learning zone. So the learning zone is where you know you're in the learning zone when you feel challenged, when you're excited, when you're curious, engaged. It's deliberate practice. It's things that stretch us. Panic is when we're stressed, fearful, tense, worried, anxious, things we're not yet ready for. And comfort is safe, stable, relaxed, bored, things we can already do. Our practice time should be spent approximately 75% in the learning zone. 2 main types of practice I'm going to talk about today: maintenance, which is in the comfort zone, and developmental, which is in the learning zone. And I have 6 categories that I've identified in each of these. I've grouped some, I've lumped some together. You can have 7, you can have 5. But the goal here really is to have a plan and to be organized. And here are the 6 categories that I use. And whatever I'm practicing or whatever I want to learn is going to fit into one of these specific categories. Again, this is not a rule. This is my practice routine, and it's easy to amend, adjust, add things, take things away if you like. And here's some just examples of what I put in each category or what I consider. Obviously, movement, mechanism, technique includes things like grip, posture, hands, feet, coordination, movement, stickings. Things like brush technique and double pedal also overlap into musicality and styles, as Sherry will do. She's going to do a workshop on brush technique. So you have the technical aspect of it and the movement aspect of it, but you have the musicality aspect of it in playing jazz or bossa nova, etc. Same thing with double pedal. Styles, musicality, of course, this can go on forever. Improvisation, reading literature, play is a really important one. Play is a time reserved to explore different ways of playing in a risk-free, non-judgmental setting. Oftentimes we become too critical of ourselves, saying, well, I did this right, I did this wrong, my time isn't good, my feel is good. Play is, let's not worry about any of those things. Let's just try some different things and have fun and not try to judge what we're doing or what we're not doing and how good we are. I call this what if and why not, where I just try to knock down some preconceived ideas and just experiment and take some risks. And other I usually define as opportunities to do things, for most part, without sticks in my hands. So reading biographies, transcribing, reading MD, watching Sherry's, Jason, Mike's, and Steve's videos, studying drum equipment sites, which happen to be some pretty amazing sources for information. Okay, so here's how I build my practice routine. And there are my 6 categories. And so it's a grid. There are blocks, columns, and rows. Columns are practice categories, and the rows contain items you need to work on in each area. And this is really important. Practice each block, each item for 15 to 30 minutes max. Then move on. This is called spacing. It's a critical part of learning. If I'm working on whatever, style or technique, I don't work on that for an hour and a half. I work on it for maybe 15, 20 minutes, then I move on. And I probably will not practice that same thing 2 days in a row. So my practice routine, again, has a combination of maintenance and developmental. And again, I ideally work on a ratio of about 3 to 1 between development and maintenance practice. Again, practice each item 30 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes before moving on. And this is not my practice routine. This is just a sample of the kinds of things that I can plug into each one. Again, that's just an example. The other category is intended, again, for items that you might not need sticks in your hand, so you maybe do it later at night. You know, when I used to take the train into town, I would do this on the train. You could do this, you know, sometimes I do it when I'm just eating, you know, I'll watch a drum video or whatever. And again, there are things that you can do almost at any time. But they're important because we need to do, which is play. We need to think, which is reading and understanding. We need to listen, and we need to watch. They're all ways that we learn. So I start my next practice session where I left off. And then when I get to the bottom of the page, I go back and start it again. And again, I try to limit my practice sessions to no more than 90 minutes in any one setting. So maybe the first, you know, my first practice session, I'll go through the first 3 blocks, and then I'll come back later that night or the next day, and I'll go through the next 3 blocks, etc. Get down at the bottom of the page and start again. And then I date and save each sheet to keep a record, and I ask my students to show me this so I can make sure that they're have organized practice sessions. And after a few weeks, some items that we're working on start to become a little more comfortable for us. So then I move some of those things that I'm comfortable, I move them away, and then I start to add some new things. And whatever new things, I have a whole list, and I'm sure everybody does, a whole list of things that we all need to work on, we all have identified, you know, that we want to practice and learn. So here's some different methods for learning something new. And again, there are many methods. Here's just 4 of my favorite. The 5-step, which I'll show you in a minute. Horizontal, moving from left to right with something new, which is, I'm looking at a couple measures of something, and I take it 1 beat at a time. Composite rhythm and additive. Again, I'm trying to move through this pretty quickly, and I'm sure there are questions, and I'm sure you want to see me play some of the examples, but I'm trying to get through this, and I know there will be some questions and things you don't understand, so just going to keep going. Here's the 5-step method laid out a little bit. You start with the smallest component. Let's say it's a sticking, and let's say it's a paradiddle sticking. So maybe I'll sit at the pad and work on some basic paradiddles, but then take it to the drum set and build a pattern or a fill based on that sticking that paradiddle. Add different sounds, move around the drums. In this case, we're not changing the sticking, but I'm going to change the accents. Contextualize, again, I work with it in a groove and tempo, and it's okay, and I'm fine with starting off working with a metronome, but I don't play with a metronome on gigs or concerts, and rarely in live recording sessions, so I want to make sure that I'm working with music so I can hear song form, I can hear the tone of the bass, I can hear instruments that I'm trying to lock up with. And then I make situational, playing it with music, loops, those kinds of things. And then I do the what if. I take it to the next level and create something that, is not in a book maybe. So here's, again, an example of 5-step method. There's the paradiddle sticking, and this could be right, left, right, or you could start with left, right, left, left. Go to the drum set and build a pattern or fill. Now there's a pattern that I'm working on, or I have worked on, which is I'm playing open-handed with the left hand on the hi-hat. So I'll build a pattern, and there's a little variation of it in letter B. Then I contextualize, so I'll play measure A for 3 measures, and then measure B for a measure, or 7 and 1, or whatever you want to do. And then I make it situational, and I'm going to click this. It may work. It's just a groove. It's just a little bass pattern. Can you hear all that? All hear that? So I'll take that pattern and I'll work with it in this musical context. And I'll make adjustments based on what I hear the bass pattern play. And I'll adjust it from there. And then here's a little what if that I did. What if take it to the next level, and I took, you see the paradiddle, and I added 1 additional stroke. So it becomes a 5/16 note pattern. So I have a left-hand paradiddle, then a left hi-hat, then a right-hand paradiddle, then a bass drum, and back and forth again over 2 measures. Again, it's what can I do with this that's not in a book that I maybe haven't heard before. Horizontal method of learning is take it 1 beat at a time. So maybe your first go around is not to try to play this too slow, because you're going to make mistakes. And the brain's a funny thing. The brain doesn't know that you're making a mistake when you're trying to learn something new. So if you try to play this 10 times and you play it incorrectly 10 times, your brain and nervous system thinks that's the way to play it. So you're starting to learn and memorize your mistakes inadvertently. So I like to practice these things that look like this slowly left to right. So maybe I'll just play the first beat. So I'll just clap out a rhythm. So I'll play. And then I'll add 1 more 16th. And then etc. until I can get through the entire measure. And that may take a couple of days, and it may take 15 or 20 minutes, but the important thing is to not practice your mistakes. Because once you start practicing mistakes, you get good at playing mistakes. So don't practice mistakes. And then, of course, I play it to music. Here's the additive process. This is pretty cool. I may demonstrate this for you in a few minutes if anybody wants to see how this works. It's pretty incredible how our brains and nervous systems work to proceduralize things that you play and practice and how we learn. And it's no different for us than it is for athletes. And it's no different for us than it is with everyday people. There's so many things that we have proceduralized that you're not even aware of. But when you learn to do it in drums, it becomes an incredibly valuable and important tool. And again, I can demonstrate that later if you like. Here's just a photo that kind of demonstrates what a muscle memory and neural memory is. Imagine a giant field, and there's a path. That path may be worn down from somebody walking through it, for months or years. Your job in forming a new neural memory is to create a new path. You're learning bossa nova, you're learning swing, you're learning whatever you're practicing, you need to create a new path that doesn't exist. So the first number of times you try to cross this field, you're not going to create a new path. You have to find your way, and it may take weeks, it may take months to build a new neural pathway. Generally, the thinking is it takes at least 8 to 12 weeks to build a new neural pathway. So one of the things I tell my students all the time is just be patient. It'll happen. We can skip over that for now. It's about neural tissue. Nerdy brain stuff. And again, this is a little neuroscience stuff. Procedural memory is typically acquired through repetition and practice. Sometimes we call it muscle memory, but I hear that term all the time. Just to be clear, our muscles don't have memory. It's our nervous system that has the memory. Sometimes it's called muscle memory, body memory, neural memory. It's not wrong. It's just that all of this is neural memory. It's how our brains work. Chunking, re-encoding. Again, this is an example of that. Take a simple pattern, and you can think of this in triplets. So you have 3/8 triplets on the snare or wherever, 2 bass drums, and then another triplet and an eighth note. So you practice that, and when you start practicing that, you have to think about each note and execute each note individually. After a while, that becomes one chunk. It's like when you learn to read a word, you're reading and sounding everything out, but after a while it becomes a picture and becomes one thought. And so I added 2 more beats here, and then I took this as a what if, and instead of playing it 4 beats to the measure, I took only the first 3 beats and repeated that. And again, I practiced that and similar things to where I can play that and practically hold a conversation with you without thinking about it. It's not because I'm any good at that. It's because my brain and my nervous system has learned to chunk that into one thought. Couple final things to think about. Tempo. Again, be careful about slowing the tempo down too much when learning something new. When practicing, it may be helpful to think of tempos not as being faster or slower, but different. I say this a lot of times, and it sounds weird, but to me, 180 beats a minute is not faster than 100 beats a minute. It's different. And, if I'm playing the John Riley book, something that he's designed and written out to be played at 110 beats a minute, that may not sound so good at 160 beats a minute. It becomes a different language, so make sure you're practicing through a wide range of tempos in every style. This is a weird thing, I know. And when I was young and I was on the road, 48 weeks a year, I used to think, man, I can get by on 4 or 5 hours of sleep. And you can, after a while. But you're not learning. 8 hours is critical to learning and development. And here's why. Deep sleep brainwaves is a file transfer process that occurs from something you've worked on during the day. This has nothing to do with dreaming. This is the way your body works. This is the way our brains have worked, and we've developed as a society for millions of years. And this book, Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep, I would recommend it to every human being in the world to read. When I tell you that it's changed a lot of how I think about my life in general, I would highly recommend that book. Hand preference and dominance. This is a new article I've been talking with Mike Dawson. I'm kind of halfway through it. Drumset is not right-handed or left-handed. It's a two-handed, two-footed instrument, period. All limbs need to be equally skilled and coordinated. Just like pianists, guitarists, violinists, surgeons, airline pilots, athletes, race car drivers, your hands may be doing different things, but it's not right-handed, left-handed. And this is neuroplasticity. The brain modifies its structure. It's about input. If you practice a certain way, That's the way your brain actually changes. It's not just what you're born with, it's what you develop over your whole life. These are called mechanoreceptors you have in your fingers. They're the same in both hands. So your left hand index finger is as sensitive as your right hand index finger, regardless of what hand you determine you're going to sign your name with. And here's the other thing. Playing the hi-hat with the right hand crossing over the left hand, it's a choice. It's not the result of being right-handed, but more of a combination of holding the stick in the left hand using the traditional grip, the discomfort of attempting to play the hi-hat using that grip, and also of decades of habit and mirroring. It's not right-handed, left-handed. There are probably, because I've played so long, before I did all the research, 80% of the things that I'm playing on the hi-hat, I play with my right hand. Not because I'm right-handed, that's a neural pathway that I've developed. But the new things that I'm working on, I'm playing all with my left hand, so my right hand is free to go to the other side of the kit. It's not a right-handed, left-handed issue. And the only thing I'll say about virtual reality is this is the new way that everyone is learning, pilots, surgeons, healthcare professionals, teaching physics, training astronauts, training the military, and for drummers, it's electronic drums. It's the closest thing to virtual reality, an augmented reality that we have. Summary: use purposeful practice and purposeful play. Practice mostly in the learning zone. Practice through a wide range of tempos, playing with music. Practice like you play, and you'll play like you practice. Ask questions, read and research. Score, space, challenge, randomize. They're the things that we covered today. Space your practice, make sure you're challenging yourself, and jump from item to item. Don't just practice one thing for 6 hours. Use your creativity and shape your own unique voice. Take breaks during practice and limit your long sessions. Sleep, critical. Avoid social media experts. Man, I see, I've never seen any video on YouTube that's been amazing where somebody thinks it's terrible. So don't worry about what anybody else says, especially social media where people can hide behind their comments. Trust your own judgment, trust your teachers. Y'all are headed in the right direction. Ignore social media experts. And have fun. It's drums. Just play and have fun. Anybody ever see the TV show The Twilight Zone? There you go. That's from The Twilight Zone. You're now leaving the comfort zone. And I'm going to put this PowerPoint presentation. I know this has been recorded, or we're recording it, but I'm going to also put this up online so all of you have the opportunity to, see things more in detail. And here's a list of resources. And I have not updated this for the past couple months, this list of resources, and it's probably another couple pages by now. But here's the research that I've done, whether it's books or thesis papers or doctoral papers or just general research. And here's some of the work that went into this presentation. And again, this is over at least a dozen years. That's it. So I'm happy to answer any questions or demonstrate anything that you'd like. And here's one thing that I'll tell you, although this is the product of a lot of years of research. In another 2 months, let alone another year or two, some things in this presentation I will change because of new research. Neuroplasticity has just exploded in the last 15 years. So a lot of these findings are pretty new, and it's just exploding. This is kind of the new area of research is neuroscience and fMRIs, which is functional magnetic resonance imaging, where they look at your brain while you're playing and improvising and thinking about drums and learning. And it's all really, again, I mean, I'm nerdy about this stuff, but it's all pretty cool. Uh, questions? Anything? Want me to demonstrate anything?
Hi, Mark. It's Sherry. That was
Hi,
great.
Sherry.
Thank you for sharing all of that. That's so, it's mind-boggling, quite literally. That's really great. Yeah, could you talk just a little bit more about the visualization aspect? I know it's really big in athletics about visualizing practice and how that in fact does have a remarkable impact on your outcome. I don't know if anybody actually does that. Think about yourself like nailing it, and just a little bit more about the visualization stuff.
Yes, it's great. I actually had about 6 slides on that I pulled down because it's a little complicated to talk about. I'll give you the quick summary, which is mental practice. If you right now close your eyes and imagine yourself walking into another room in the house, the kitchen, and just in real time, step by step, close your eyes, your brain doesn't know you're not actually doing it. And the same neural pathways that fire when you're doing it are actually firing when you're thinking about it. So, mental practice, there's 2 aspects of it. One is, before I perform, I always take like 15, 20 minutes late in the afternoon after sound check and lay down, close my eyes, shut the shades, and just visualize certain aspects of my performance that I'm going through. And every time I do that, I don't make mistakes. So the idea is to think about what you're going to do, walk through it in real time. Mental practice, I'll tell you a quick study they did. They had 2 groups of people, and there were like 10 or 12 in each. And they were going to learn something on piano, and it was actually just a 5-note do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do with both hands. Group A practice that, and I know it sounds crazy, but they practice that. These are non-musicians for 2 hours a day. Group B did not physically practice it, but thought about it and listened to it for 2 hours a day for 5 days. At the end of the 5th day, the group who just visualized it was able to play it the first time they played it as good as the group who actually physically played it after the 3rd day. But here's the cool thing. After that group who just visualized it, practiced it for 2 hours, they played it better than the group that actually played it for 5 days. So visual, but it's a little difficult to do because you have to do it. You can't move your fingers or arms or feet, but you have to imagine it in real time. So if I'm playing a groove or I'm playing some particular aspect of the solo or a chart, whatever, I have to think about it and hear it in real time. But that neural pathway gets fired and burnt deeper every single time I do that. And the people this is big in the classical world, especially amongst violinists and soloists, they swear by it. So it's a little hard to do, and I'd be happy to send people some more research on it and talk about it more. But man, it's almost, it crosses a line between physical, live, in-time performance and augmented reality. But yeah, Sherry, visualization can cut down your practice time, your physical practice time, by half. And I'm not saying you have to cut it down, but if you only have, you're busy doing this and that, and you only have 30 minutes to practice, or all you can do is warm up, but then you have to go and perform. Yeah, your visual and mental imagery is going to help you dramatically.
And Mark, I can attest to that. I use your advice preparing for my clinics. So driving to each clinic, I would literally dress rehearse the entire clinic in my head. And every single time it's been, without fail, so much more comfortable. And I don't practice the clinic ever. It's all just, I'm going like word for word. What's going to be my opening joke? Like literally rehearsing it during the drive or the flight. Once you told me that, and I kind of knew it, but I never did it. I have not had performance anxiety once since then, because I know what to expect. All the problems are prepared for.
Mike, the term for that is deconditioning, And for example, when I have to, not with a presentation like this amongst drummers, because it's kind of fun and cool, but when I would have to speak in front of, 1,000 people or make a big presentation to the president, I would mentally rehearse it. And if, to me, that's what a sound check is. When I go to a sound check in the afternoon, not only, you're listening to the sound, adjust, I need more of this, I need less of this, whatever it is, but I'm visually seeing the space I'm going to be playing in. I'm visually seeing where the other musicians are. I'm hearing what's going to happen. So when I did what I said a couple of minutes ago and I laid down and go through the motions, there's nothing new that night. So there's no distractions. I know what it's going to sound like. I know what it's going to look like. I know where Tom Kennedy's going to be. I know where everybody's going to be on stage. So I don't have to, nothing is new, which if it's new, it becomes a distraction. And these are called performance modulators. Performance modulators are anxiety, nervousness, your best friends in the audience, your greatest critics in the audience, you haven't eaten all day. All those things affect your performance. You're hearing something for the first time, something's happening visually for the first time. The more you can eliminate those, like you said, Mike, you go through the motions and it's like you've done this all before. And then you're free to just think about playing, hear music, respond, and be in the moment. And that's the key. What you just said is exactly the key. Deconditioning. Any other questions? And here's what I always say when I make a presentation. You can like what I said, you cannot like what I said. If you want to challenge what I said, please, by all means, say, hey, man, you said this thing or you're thinking about this. I don't think that's right. Then challenge me, but show me the research and show me the data. Show me some information. Anybody is fine to disagree, agree, have your own opinion, but I think that all drummers, musicians, performers at every level, sports, whatever it is, will be served better by paying a little more attention to facts and science and how our bodies and brains and nervous systems work. You can like or dislike anything, and everybody has their own opinion and are free to have that. But think about this stuff on your own. Challenge every single thing that you hear. Say, hey man, I don't know that that's right. When I first, and I played traditional grip for many years, and I remember asking a teacher one time when I was playing around with match grip, which is what I do 100% of the time now, and the teacher said, well, you're holding the sticks wrong. And I was kind of a smart aleck kid, and I said, well, why? And he said, and he gave me some, reason that made no sense to me. And I said, well, if this is so good, then why don't I hold, stick in my right hand that way too? And he cursed at me and walked away. He didn't like that comment. But so as long as you're alive, you should be questioning everything that everybody says to you. And find out on your own. Find your own path. But oftentimes, tradition is not our best friend. Find out for yourself. Need me to demonstrate anything or talk about anything, or y'all good?
If there's no other questions, please help me thank Marc Dicciani for this incredible presentation, eye-opening presentation, all the research that you've done, Marc. It's just outstanding. And thank you for sharing it with us today. Thanks for sharing this video with us. The PowerPoint slides, all the PDFs, we really appreciate it.
And I'm always available if anybody has any questions or say, hey man, can you recommend something, or I think you're nuts, and whatever. It's fine. Send me an email.
Thank you, Marc.
Thanks, Marc.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Marc. It's great.
We'll see everybody next Wednesday.
It's drums. Play. Have fun. Just play. Play. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you all next Wednesday for the Mike Clark Masterclass at 11:30.
Cool.
Don't forget to sign up. Sign up for the pre-masterclass video feature. We have a couple students signed up. There's plenty of space. I know all the guest artists want to hear you guys play and make constructive criticism on your playing. So please take advantage of that. Sign up. And we'll see you all next week. Thanks again, Mark.
Thank you all.
Thanks so much.
See you.